Good to go. Welcome to tonight's pre-meeting for Monday, February 10th, 2025. Any questions for agenda first?
So I have a question about B and C. How do we decide when we replace our HVAC? Is it scheduled every 19 years, or are we having problems with it? Because I know personally, I just replaced mine at 28 years. So I just want to know how we decide that.
Good evening, Paul Knibble, Director of Public Works and Utilities. The answer to your question is both. So there is a schedule, so we figure about 20 years. But then there's also been just an increasing level of maintenance that has occurred to some of these things. Or these two, one at Westview and then the other at the city park, correct, at the pool.
Do we get a better deal by doing both of them together?
Possibly. We bid them at the same time, and we sent it out and solicited to over 300 different contractors, and we had 4 bids back for each.
Okay.
So we feel pretty good about it.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Anything else from anybody? Reports? Councilor Azadi?
No, ma'am.
Councilor Hott? No.
No report this week.
Councilor Ireland?
I'm just reporting that I, as a communications specialist for my church, we're having our 25th anniversary of Teacher Appreciation Night.
Oh, wow.
And they're coming tonight to invite you all. Sarah Marks is the keynote speaker. She's the principal of Legacy. And our superintendent of Adams 12, Chris Godzowski, will be there. So it'll be a great night, I think. It's been great. I participated quite a few times with my own children. What they do is each senior picks a teacher or a coach that has made a big impact on their life, and then they talk about them, and then they present them their speech plus a little certificate and their picture together. It's a nice evening. So
It's a very nice evening. I've gone.
So I hope some of you will come. This is great.
When is it?
It's the 25th of February. Remember, 25 years, 25th of February, 7 p.m. at the church on Lowell, which is right across from the Paul Dearder Rec Center. So they should be coming bringing invitations, so that'll help you remember. That's all I have. Thank you.
Did you have a personnel board No.
No, I didn't have a personnel board. At least they didn't reach out to me, so I didn't know about it. Sorry about that.
It could have been the last one. I don't know that they talked about.
Nothing for me.
For Tim?
Just keeping track of legislative activity. That's the mayor, so.
Busy time.
Yeah.
For me, I left you last Monday with, I had scans Wednesday. They are still clean, and he says we've shrunk about 30%, and so he's excited, which makes me do cartwheels, because if he's excited, I'm overwhelmed. So I went to the Chamber Government Affairs meeting, and that was interesting. I just listened. It's always good. I like knowing what's going on in the business world and where their headaches are. So that I just listened, and that was good. And Westie Schools Saturday had so many events. It was going from like 8 in the morning until I left at 3:30, and I bet you they were still there till 5. But they just had events and the kids participating and doing all sorts of different things. But the one I was in was the spelling bee, and they had for elementary, and then they had for secondary. And it's a heartbreaker when they miss their first word in their first time up. And I told them I would do it, but I take tissue because I cry with the kids. But the winner of the elementary, her parents were sitting behind me just a little bit to the left, and she had missed a word in the 7th or 8th round. And so she went to sit down, and the other 5 or 6 that were left all misspelled their word. So she came back, started over. I don't know how many rounds they went. They went a long time. I thought we were going to run out of words. And she won.
Wow.
So that was exciting, yeah. And the secondary didn't have as many participants, but they did a great job. And it was a good day. They were all working so hard when I went outside and they were working on STEM stuff, and somebody else was showing stuff that they made, the 3D stuff that they make. It was a wonderful day for them, so they're great. City manager?
I will have a report at the dais tonight. I should highlight that we will not be having executive session item 4B tonight. So that's not necessary this evening. So we will have only one executive session tonight, 4A. That's all I would add. I'm also going to, at the dais, talk about, we are activating our emergency cold weather shelter, but I'll make a formal announcement of that at the dais, and it'll go into effect tomorrow.
Quick question. Didn't a Westminster resident win the stock show this year? Did you hear anything about that?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if we have.
There was the little kids version, the kids section where they ride on top. The Westminster resident lasted the longest
On the lamb
on the lamb, I think.
busting?
Must have been.
Find out.
There was a little, I think there was somebody in Westminster, but they all get trophies that are tall, way taller than the child. And there was a young lady, I don't know, remember how old she was. She hung on for dear life, and the lamb knew where to go. And he wanted to get in the gate with his friends, and she was still hanging on. So a cowboy had to race, and he held her way up because she went the furthest. But there's no winners or losers. They all are winners. But I do think the night I was there, there was somebody from Westminster. But it's fun. Some make it maybe 10 foot away from the gate. And you just hope the lamb doesn't, I don't know how big those lambs are, but you don't want them to step on them. But that little girl just, I don't know if she or he had good wool, but she stayed on the whole way and was still there when they came to grab her up. Oh, that was cute. Anything else? We will see everybody at 7 o'clock. Welcome to tonight's meeting for February 10th, 2025. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Westminster City Council meeting of February 10th, 2025. We appreciate your attendance and would like to remind everyone that our meetings are governed by the rules of decorum, which are posted inside the chamber doors. These rules are in effect during all meetings, including breaks and transitions. To ensure all welcoming and respectful environment, we kindly ask everyone to adhere to the following expectations. No attendee shall disrupt the meeting. Threats and intimidation are strictly prohibited. Audible expressions of support or opposition for any speaker are not allowed. Signs and placards are prohibited inside the chamber. All attendees must remain seated in the designated seats and refrain from occupying aisles or blocking doorways. Thank you for your cooperation and understanding as we work together to maintain a productive and respectful meeting. If you are here to speak during public comment, please sign up in the lobby. Sign up closes at 7:15. Roll call, please.
Claire Carmelia.
Present.
Councillor DeMott.
Present.
Councillor Azadi.
Here.
Councillor Hott.
Present.
Mayor McNally.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Nurmela.
Here.
And Councillor Ireland.
Here.
That brings us to minutes of January 27th. Councillor DeMott.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the minutes of the January 27th, 2025 City Council meeting as presented.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of January 27th, 2025. Are there any corrections or additions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to public comment. The public comment portion is an opportunity for the public to speak with the City Council. Each participant will have up to 3 minutes. Public comment is not intended to be a back and forth discussion. If you wish to speak about a public hearing, please hold your comments until that item is called. The city clerk has informed me that we have received 6 emails and 0 voicemails, all of which have been transcribed and posted online. City clerk, please call the first speaker.
The first speaker is Emily Brooks.
Welcome.
Thank you. Mayor, city councilors, city manager, I'm going to comment on your recent strategic planning session and your ongoing budget discussions. The ongoing department budget presentations and the recent council strategic planning session are great sources of information for everyone in Westminster, providing useful insights into our city's financial and operational workings. However, not everyone is aware of or will access this information. The mayor's suggestion to spread this important story is a step in the right direction. I agree that more needs to be done to ensure everyone is informed and up to date. Sharing current information is important, but we also need to tackle the misinformation and disinformation that has been circulating in our community about the management of city resources. This has led to confusion and mistrust among residents. It's crucial to correct these misconceptions and provide clear factual information. Like many of you, I've also talked to numerous residents by knocking on doors and discussing community issues. Many still believe, based on past campaigns and ongoing claims, that the infrastructure projects needed to support core services are unnecessary and wasteful. This belief is a result of past campaign rhetoric and the opinions of some elected officials that misrepresent the reality of these projects. The decision delay on the water treatment plant is a prime example. The delay resulted in increased costs and highlighted the need for timely, well-informed decisions. It's your job to make decisions that are both fiscally responsible and timely. Your efforts to gather the necessary information to make sound decisions are appreciated. It's important that these efforts continue and are communicated effectively to the public. Transparency in decision-making and proactive engagement with the community are key to building trust and keeping residents well informed. Sharing accurate information, Addressing misinformation and making timely decisions are crucial parts of your role on council. I support initiatives to improve communication and transparency and encourage ongoing efforts to engage with the community and provide clear, factual information about the city's projects and resource management. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Tim Pegg. Welcome.
Hi, Council. My name is Tim Pegg. I live in Countryside. I'm an alternate on the Planning Commission, but the opinions I'm expressing tonight are my own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Commission. I want to address last week's study session around the Transit-Oriented Communities Law because I think the Council was somewhat misinformed. I don't think Westminster should choose to break the law, and I am especially dismayed because the decision to do so is based in part on some misunderstandings. There seems to be a misconception that new homes built as a result of the new law would need to be built by the municipal government and given away. That doesn't seem to be anywhere in the law. This really is a free market-oriented reform. Further, I think it is a misconception that the city would have 3 years to find water supply which might not exist. But the law does not require us to find water that doesn't exist. This misconception seems to come from leaving out the words "and every 3 years thereafter" in subsection 5 of the new law. I don't think inaccurately describing this requirement reflects thorough and diligent work. We heard that the cost of necessary water system upgrades would be prohibitive, but the city charges tap fees, and the city's website says tap fees are charged to new constructions to cover the cost related to its impact on the city's utilities, which raises the question, are our tap fees adequate? And if not, why not fix them instead of defying the legislature? I also want to highlight the positives of this bill for Westminster. Statewide, voters have been positively begging for a solution to the high cost of housing in our prosperous metro areas. In Westminster, 45% of renting households and 22% of mortgaging households are cost burdened by paying for their homes. It's not in my notes, but I want to point out that means if you walk down the street and count, roughly every fourth home, someone is struggling to pay their mortgage. By embracing this reform, you will also be freeing up more choices in the housing market for them. Instead of defying state law, the city should at least take the time to understand how far off we are from meeting our requirements. We should not write off this policy, which will help us build a more sustainable and affordable Westminster, without first understanding what we will actually have to do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Kate Fuller. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Council. I'm also excited for the housing bill and the transit bill to be realized. My godfather is in his 80s. He lives in an apartment in the Front Range across from a transit stop. He is just able to afford the apartment at market rates.
Can we have you put the
Yes, ma'am.
microphone close to you?
Sorry about that. So his apartment is sized right for his needs. He doesn't need to worry about maintenance, snow shoveling, or keeping up with the yard. He lives independently, but he should absolutely not be driving, and fortunately does not have a car. Fortunately, he can get himself to the store, to a show, or to visit friends, and I'm so excited to see more success stories like this in Westminster too. If his apartment complex had been required to provide an unwanted parking space for him, not only would he have to pay for the spot, but fewer units would have been built, and so necessarily his monthly bill would be even higher, probably prohibitively so in his case. So this law specifically pertains to areas near existing frequent transit, which attracts folks who might opt to drive less anyway. The law also acknowledges how important water is in Colorado, and it allows for exemptions if there's an insufficient supply. Water supply is super complicated, and it is really difficult to find information about it on the city's website, but rough numbers suggest that Westminster is using about half of its current water supply, and in Westminster, the total water use has actually gone down while population increased. That's not even the per capita water use, that's the total water use. So allowing more housing is not leading us to a Mad Max apocalypse. We might not be able to support housing in every area that is suggested by these bills, but that's why it's so important for you to actually address this in good faith. Do the report, point out any real shortfalls in specific areas, and keep in mind that this law doesn't force the government to build housing. It merely zones specific strategic areas so new housing can be built if there's a want and need for it. I really hope that you pursue with this. I think our residents deserve real options and their own great success stories. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Karen Calavity. Welcome.
Thank you. I want to speak in favor of the decision that was made, or the suggestion that was made last week with regard to 1313. I have never seen that as a solution to our housing problem, affordable or not. It just has seemed to create more traffic and more mess in certain areas of the city than not. So I was very grateful that Mayor Nancy McNally made a suggestion to listen to Andrew Spurgeon and take stock of our own planning to negate that, or to pretty much say that that wasn't going to serve our community very well, because I do not believe that 1313 was going to serve our community. It does give people like the Uplands developers lots of reasons to make high-density housing in an area where they're getting away with all sorts of stuff. And I know they think they're going to get away with more because of 1313. It's very poor planning. They're building in floodplains. They're not being environmentally sound at all. To me, it's nothing but high-density, expensive tenement housing that's going up there. And they're not even, they're not following through on completing Lowell Boulevard before they're messing up more land here and there. I mean, they're devaluing our city. And anyway, I'm very glad that that decision was made last week. And it may not be a final decision, and there may be repercussions, but I think it was a good idea to bring that up as a thing not to follow through on. But I also want to bring up, I heard in the chambers there something about the HVAC systems for City Park and some other buildings. And I would really like to see us as a city use IRA funding for progressive types of heating, cooling, and ventilation instead of the old-fashioned stuff. From what I've learned, the only IRA funding is going into, electric vehicle charging stations, and theirs seem to be geared towards being powered by fossil fuel. I mean, we've got to start getting serious about not using fossil fuel energy, and getting buildings powered like this one with geothermal is one of the best ways, and we've got to do that with some of our other facilities. So those are things I wanted to talk about.
Thank you. The next speaker is Janella Carlson. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Janella Carlson. I am the Communication Director from the Westminster Stake for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And on February 25th, Tuesday in about 2 weeks, we will have our 25th Annual Teacher Appreciation Night. And on this night, we'll have about 25 seniors that will come, and they will give a 2 to 3 minute tribute and to honor a teacher who has made a difference in their life. And they can choose a teacher anywhere from kindergarten clear to their senior year. And they will honor these teachers, and they will thank them for the work they've done. This is a night where the teachers from the community, of the Westminster community, come, where the seniors are there, where we'll have the principals, the superintendent of the Adams 12-star school will be there. And it is a wonderful night to see the great work that these teachers have done, to honor them. I have heard stories in past years of students who get up thanking profoundly their special education teacher that helped them, or the physics teacher that inspired them to go on and to do good works in physics, or theater teachers. Or it's just a heartwarming way to spend an evening in an honor the teachers who sometimes receive little recognition in their life. And a wonderful way to celebrate that, the education and the difference that they have made. So if you have a chance, we would love to invite each of the members of the council to come, or anyone in the Westminster City who is hearing this, to come and to be part of a night where these students have a chance to give profound thanks to an educator who has made a difference in their life. And I have an invitation here for all of you. And if you have a chance, you will not regret this night. There's a small reception afterwards where the teachers and students and any one of you can mingle and thank them. We have refreshments there. And I promise you, it will be a treat for you to be able to come and to listen to these tributes. So thank you, and I will hand these to Abby. Is that all right?
Perfect.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. The next speaker is Vivek Sundaraj. Welcome.
Good evening and thank you, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen. This is my first time here, so it's exciting. I'm going to make a request regarding House Bill 1313. I want to give you a short preamble. I won't be long. I won't take up the full 3 minutes and I won't bore you. We are 25-year residents here in Westminster, so I think, Mayor McNally, I remember when you were mayor once before, some time ago. We intend to live here permanently. When we were much younger, my family and I lived in suburban Pittsburgh, and we and our 2 children were a one-car family there because I was able to ride mass transit. I rode the bus for a while, and then when we moved nearby, from suburban Pittsburgh, I was able to commute to downtown Pittsburgh, near downtown Pittsburgh in Station Square, via the train and also via the trolley system there. I lived nearby and it was very convenient. And so this helped keep our costs down when we were a young family. With just one car, it was lower insurance, and of course didn't have to make a second car payment. And then I didn't have to pay to park at work either. And so I found out recently that Westminster City Council is not going to comply with Colorado state law with 1313. HB 24-1313 requiring zoning for multifamily residential units near mass transit infrastructure, which I understand to be light rail and bus stops. I understand that water insufficiency is an important gating factor. I get that. But I understand that there are exemptions that can be renewed every 3 years. Also, as I looked into this, I don't know all the details, but these are things that jumped out at me. Local zoning control is another issue, and I believe that is well within the control of Westminster City Council. So I have an ask of you. I request please comply with state law HB 24-1313.
Thank you. The next speaker is John Palmer. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening. 2 weeks ago in this very chamber, I gave you all a packet that looked a whole lot like this, and specifically had questions about the Schonenberg farm and the ownership on the application. Requested information about that. Additionally, Councilor Numela, in her council comments, directed staff to please get back with Mr. Palmer and clarify that. It's been 2 weeks. I think that's more than sufficient. On top of that, if you refer back to the city's website, currently at the top where there's the 4 bands that roll, there's one that talks about public comments. open that, look at it. When it gets to the in-person comments, the very last thing is, if questions are asked, a member of staff will get back with you the next business day. Why put that out there if we're not going to do it? And again, I ask Councilor Numela, you had asked for that to be conveyed to me. It didn't happen. I think we can do a whole lot better. I say it's not too much to ask, especially when a councilor or the mayor pro tem asked that it be done and it not happen. On top of the fact that the website clearly states that you'll be contacted the next business day. 2 weeks today. Still waiting for answers. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Tom Lampo. Welcome.
Hey, thank you very much. Good to be back in front of you. I'm Tom Lampo, and I'm here to lift up Westminster in prayer. So please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, in Jesus Christ's precious name, we humbly come before you, Lord, asking you to forgive us of our sins. We need the forgiveness you offer. You are the creator of heavens and earth and all that is within. You're the King of kings and Lord of lords. No one is above you, and you share your throne with no one. No one can challenge your authority. Your kingship has never been in question. In Isaiah 45:7, you state, I form the light and create darkness. I bring prosperity and create disaster. I, the Lord, do all these things. All power is in your hands, and we recognize you as the Lord of Westminster. You're welcome here, and we need your presence throughout our city. There's a lot happening across our society. We're experiencing many changes, and with those changes, we have many questions. At times, we cannot determine if the changes are beneficial or harmful, but we are here and they are happening. Your wisdom is solid. Your knowledge is all-encompassing. There's nothing that worries you. So we claim for our lives Jeremiah 32:38-40, which states, And they shall be my people, and I will be their God. I will give them one heart and one way, that they may fear me forever, for their own good and the good of their children after them. I will make with them an everlasting covenant, that I will not turn away from doing good to them. In these times you have given us an assurance that through all things you will never leave us. Turn our eyes and our hearts to you. Bless us in these times with your wisdom and understanding. You are our God and we are your people. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen. Thank you guys. Have a nice night.
Thank you. That was our last speaker. City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a brief report this evening. First, I do want to thank and recognize all our speakers tonight, and we do listen. Apologies to Mr. Palmer. We will follow up with you, sir, on the Schoenberg request. I don't know what happened on that one, but we will get back to you. So let me move into our presentation, please. City update. The most important update this evening is that we will be activating our emergency cold weather shelter tomorrow. As you can feel in this room and outside, cold weather is settling in on Westminster. The shelter will be opened noon tomorrow, and we do plan on running it through noon Thursday. That is if the weather starts to warm at that point, and that will be at the MAC. Westminster's emergency cold weather shelter program operates in extreme cold weather situations to augment the county's services for residents who are not able to access those services. The city does encourage residents to familiarize themselves with sheltering programs available in both our counties, Adams and Jefferson, but the MAC will be open starting tomorrow at noon because of the cold weather. Next slide, please. This is a roll-up update from 2024. This is pretty exciting. This is new for Westminster's history. Our recreation centers had record participation over the 2024 calendar year. We increased access for our seniors in a very big way, as well as those facing financial hardship and also community members who served or serve in the military. So we had more than 1.1 million guests visit in 2024, and that is our highest year ever recorded for the City of Westminster. We issued almost 1,500 new Medicare fitness passes and generated 176,000 Medicare fitness visits last year. We also provided 1,625 program scholarships, 357 reduced rate facility passes, 199 military facility passes, and over 3,000 military daily passes. And we do attribute that large increase in military use because we changed the policy. Council directed and supported, and we now offer a military discount. So if you're in our community and you haven't accessed that, please visit one of our recreation centers and we'll get you set up with a reduced rate pass. Next slide, please. Tonight's agenda, I want to just run through that. We have 3 items on consent. All 3 of those have been removed from consent. So item 8A regarding membership for the Colorado Communities for Climate Action will be voted on separately. Item 8B, which is the authorization of a contract for Reliant Mechanical Services to renovate the pool's heating and cooling system at City Park Rec Center. That will also be voted on individually. And item 8C, which is executing a contract with Design Mechanical to renovate the heating and cooling system at Westview Recreation Center. Then on new business, we have first reading of Councilor's Bill number 1, amending the Westminster Municipal Code regarding the industrial pretreatment program. We also have on post-meeting study session 4 presentations. The first 3 of those are Westminster Municipal Code cleanup, and that will be led by our city attorney and his staff. The first is regarding elections on recall petitions. The second is regarding local campaign finance complaints to the Colorado Secretary of State in situations of actual or potential conflicts of interest. That's another cleanup. And then the third one is amending the Westminster Municipal Code regarding unclaimed property, and that would bring us into alignment with the state's rules in that area. And then finally this evening in post-meeting study session is a presentation. It was these were referred to by one of our speakers tonight. Public Works and Utilities Department budget presentation is this evening. And then we do have one final meeting, a post-meeting executive session, and that's regarding city facility security measures. On the agenda, there was a second item posted regarding the Woman Creek Authority parcel, and that session is no longer needed tonight. Next slide, please. This week coming up, Tuesday, February 11th, so tomorrow is Planning Commission meeting. That's right here in City Council chambers, starts at 7 o'clock. On Wednesday, there are 2 meetings, February 12th, the Inclusivity Board meeting right here in City Hall, in the City Hall Pikes Peak Conference Room. That starts at 6 o'clock. And also the Youth Advisory Panel is meeting here at City Hall in the Colorado River Room, and that starts at 6 o'clock as well. On Saturday, February 15th, this is a plug for something pretty cool for the city, a pop-up dance party and mingle. So from 5 to 6 p.m. at Swim and Fit Center, people can get a bonus hour, dance lessons, and then from 6 to 8 p.m. join the dance party, and that is, again, all happening at the Swim and Fitness Center. Next slide, please. Next week on Monday, February 17th, City Hall and other city administrative offices will be closed for President's Day, so no city council meeting or study session meeting that day. On Wednesday, however, on the 19th, there is a special permit and license board meeting, and that's from 6 to 8 p.m. right here in City Council chambers. And then on Thursday, on February 20th, bringing this to your attention, it is on your calendars if you want to attend the Kensington Park Totem Pole Focus Group meeting, the first one, and that starts at 5:30, and that will be at the Walnut Creek Golf Preserve. Next slide, please. Our next meeting will then be on the following Monday, February 24th, starting 6:30 here in City Council chambers. We will have 2 information-only items. The first is the 2025 Comprehensive Plan Biennial Report. So that's a report that we are required to do every 2 years. That's an update on the plan. And the second is, this is in response to some questions and some outreach from our community members. We will be bringing back a comprehensive information-only memo for you, recapping our rental housing inspection program. So what we do and what we don't do, what our levels of service are there. And so we'll get that to you, and then you can have a look at it and let us know if you have any questions. We have one item on consent for that meeting, one public hearing, which is the consideration of an official development plan for an uplands filing, and that's filing 1 Block 3 PA/A3. And then 2 post-meeting study session presentations. This will be another departmental budget presentation. The finance department is on the 24th. And then we'll also be preparing for the National League of Cities conference in Washington, D.C. I'm not sure everyone's aware, but all of City Council and the city manager and key staff are going to be going together to Washington, D.C. So we will not be having a council meeting on, I believe that's March 10th. But we will be preparing in public session on the 24th for that conference. I would note also, because we're 2 weeks out, this agenda may be adjusted slightly as we work through and get ready for that agenda posting. So this one is not locked down 100%, but it will be very close to final. Next slide, please. As always, you can reach me directly in my office, 303-658-2003. jandrews@westminsterco.gov, or follow us on any one of our 4 social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, X, or Nextdoor. And I will also say we are working through the last days of our current city website, and thanks to everybody for working through that complex and aging website, but we will be rolling out a brand new one, much slicker and much more effective. And we actually do have some of our community members beta testing that for us right now to help us make sure that we're dialing that in. So please all look forward to that, and thank you for your patience on a clumsy website and one that's now outdated. That's all I have, Mayor.
Any questions for the city manager? Thank you. That brings us to city council comments. And my names aren't coming up, so I'll keep going back and forth. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to thank all the public that came and provided their comments. And I hope that in terms of the infrastructure components, I also agree that this is and I think a lot of actually all of council unanimously agreed that infrastructure is a big piece for us to tackle. And hopefully we can make that a more interactive conversation with the community, because I do appreciate the words that you provided regarding the perception. And speaking of perception, I did want to address the concerns that we're not meeting our 1313 requirements, and that we are doing that because we don't believe in the nexus between housing and affordability and transit. I want to assure the community that we have done our due diligence with planning around transit for the past 20 years. We have worked very hard to create plans and rezone areas around our transit stations that provide for higher density development and mixed use development. And that has allowed us to bring in a lot of multifamily and higher density and mixed use projects around transit. And we have areas which include our downtown, Westminster Station, and Walnut Creek Promenade area that you have seen evolve over the past 10 or 15 years, because they have that ability to build and intensify their development. And you've seen those multifamily projects rise up out of the ground, and there is more capacity for those areas to continue to build out. And so for us, I think it's important to understand that planning comes with community input, comes with input from our business community as well, and that planning is not a one-size-fits-all. It is something that is very context-based, and we take a lot of pride in the work that we do to listen to our residents, to understand our area, and to plan strategically for the infrastructure that we have. It's not only water, it's sanitary sewer, it's drainage. These are things that are additional constraints that are all taken into account. And so while I think there's this immediate reaction that we don't believe in the purpose of transit and related development. We do. We are living it, and we want to make sure that we have the ability to craft how that happens in our community. So I don't know where it'll go, but I appreciate you coming in. It is wonderful, that you're here. I see some regular speakers. I appreciate new speakers coming in and sharing your opinions. So thank you.
Councilor Carmelia.
Yes, I'd also like to thank speakers that arrived tonight, and to follow up further on what Mayor Pro Tem just said. I happen to have followed up as a city manager, as aware myself, just so that I could more fully understand the depth of what it is the bill is trying to do and what it is that our city is able to do. And so I have asked to have a meeting with himself and planning to really get a better understanding of how the city can ensure that we are taking responsible action to cover the asks and the needs of our residents, while simultaneously ensuring that we protect our home rule and we don't come up against providing the state the ability to make decisions for us. So just know that we are following up, and there might be further discussions in the future around that. And to the Mayor Pro Tem's point, this has been an ongoing discussion for our council for some time. I just also want to take a moment to thank our speaker about talking about the importance of carbon emissions and electrification for the future of our planning, because I agree that that is an item of high importance. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Ireland?
So we got an email from a citizen about the airport. Carolyn Bardman sent a email to all of us concerned about the noise, continuing noise out there, the lead fuel. And we all know that we don't have lead in our gasoline for cars for a reason. And that's why they don't want lead in airplanes either at the RMMA. And to avoid repetitive training operations at the airport, the touch and goes out there are really affecting the neighbors around there. And the Westbrook neighborhood, there's over 300 homes that have signed this letter that's supposed to go to the county commissioners in Jefferson County about the airport and their concerns there. And they would wanted our city council to support them with this letter. And I do support them. I don't know what the rest of my councilors do, but I do support them sending this letter to the commissioners, and hopefully they can make some changes out there to the airport can be a better neighbor to their neighbors. I don't know if all of you realize, but our airport, the RMMA, has taken $100 million in grants over the last 20 years. Grants are taxpayer money. I'm sorry if they're from the state, federal government, they're all taxpayer money. So they're being funded by our taxes. And so I think the neighbors there have a right to not have their quality of life ruined by the airport. The airport should be listening to them and doing as much as they can to make it a better place for all of them to live. I'm not saying shut down the airport. They're not even saying shut down the airport. But they need to be able to work together and solve these problems, especially unleaded fuel and noise. It's just ongoing. Some of these people have an airplane flying every 3 minutes. And that is just not a way to live a good life. And they were, some of them were there when the airport started, and it wasn't this size, and they're increasing the size. They're putting in another runway. This was also paid for by a grant that they were given last year. So they're increasing the flights instead of scaling back. So I support them in this, and I don't know if my colleagues do, but I do. But I hope that I have others that support them. Thank you.
Thank you. And I had read it when it came through. It's not an agenda item tonight, and it is long and lengthy, and I don't think it's something we should just do from the dais. I think because we work with Jefferson County in so many other ways, I don't know, City Manager, if you're meeting with the county administrator or with the airport in any near future, that we have a study session to just talk about some of the citizens' issues and what we might do.
Thank you, Councilor Ireland. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I have had some preliminary discussions on this topic based on the previous City Council discussions and public comment period. We have arranged as a next step that we'll have City Council go out to the airport and go through the airport and get a tour and a briefing and understand and ask all the questions that you want to ask of the airport leadership, and then we'll regroup as a City of Westminster and talk about next steps.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Rosati?
I just want to say that I also support that letter, so thank you for bringing it up.
Councilor Hutt?
Yes, I also support the letter, so thank you very much, Christine, or Councilor Ireland.
Anyone else? I just wanted to mention and thank everybody for their topics tonight. With last week's meeting about 1313 and 174, those aren't congruent. They have different things in them, and state knows that. But besides that, we are a city that is almost built out. I think we have 2-3% of our land left, and so we went through, I don't know how many years, Mr. DeMott would know that better, Councilor DeMott. We went through several elections and didn't have a comprehensive land use plan, and when we finally got one, the biggest thing is on water, and we won't build one extra thing that doesn't have water. That's huge because they really didn't discuss that in this whole thing, no matter how you read it. I mean, the governor said, just go buy more. I'm telling you, look how overprescribed the Colorado River is. The state hasn't done well with living within its means with water. That's my first concern, is the water. But other than that, we shared last week, if you listened, that it meant 109,000 more units in this city, or over 50,000 new homes. That's more than we have right now. I don't know where you put them when we only have 2 to 3% land. I don't know off the top of my head of any of our redevelopments that are going to be looked at where there would be any space to rethink things. And as Mayor Pro Tem said, we have been active since when Fast Tracks passed. We believed, and we went for the 3 places that we knew we had stops. And so we have been building towards that and have those things in place for transit and people living. So the point was, in this whole, all 3 bills, the parking, and the 1313 and 174, for me, is we, Westminster, should decide what's best for Westminster. If the state wants to do it, then we should all resign because we're not needed. If the state's going to run all of the cities, let them. But we won't be here because we should resign, because what else would we do? Anyway, appreciate people coming. We need to make sure people do understand all of the pieces. We are working with the state, sharing with them our sticking points, and local control is number 1, plus the water. But I know our city manager is sitting down with governor's office. I've been in groups this last week where they're working. All of the metro mayors have been talking about it. The north area, the Jeffco area, we're all discussing it because we all have the same issues. So there'll be more to come, but each city needs to do what it needs to do, and this city talked to each other and said what we needed to do. So if there's nothing else, let's get to the consent agenda. We have item A, resolution number 3. Councilor Ireland?
So when I moved to this city, it was called a tree city, and many of our trees are dying, or we've removed them for some reason around the city park, kind
Councillor Island, I need a motion.
Well, I'm going to talk about my motion on this. I'm not going to vote for this because I think we should be planting trees with this money.
We need a motion before we have discussion.
Okay, sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Move to adopt resolution number 3, authorizing the City of Westminster to join Colorado Communities for Climate Action and support Colorado Communities for Climate Action's policy statement.
Councillor Hott?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pass resolution number 3. Councillor Ireland?
Sorry, I went before I was supposed to. Anyway, over 10 years, that's over $150,000 that we could put towards trees and make a difference in climate change. Just paying to be in some group is not making a difference. And so I propose that we use the $15,000 to plant trees rather than join a climate change club. And I don't even know where the money goes to. Many of these groups, the money never goes to anything that we need it to. So thank you.
Councillor DeMott?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just curious, Mr. Andrews, excuse me, we were in this group before and we left. We, at the time, hadn't seen value. Can you tell us from staff perspective what the value is of this membership?
Thank you, Councillor DeMott. We do have staff here tonight, so if Director Lindsay Kimball and or Bridger Tomlin want to come up and talk about what CC4CA is, and we have been members in the past. So Bridger, if you want to go ahead and talk about what it means to be a member of CC4CA, and I would just as Bridger gets ready at the podium, talk about the budget. It was included in the City Council priorities part of the 2025 budget, and that is number 5, and that is that there is funding to join the Colorado Coalition for Climate Action, or CC4CA, and that was included in the adopted 2025 budget. And then, so Bridger, if you want to build from that and answer Councillor DeMott's question.
Sure.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Good evening, Council. Bridger Tomlin, Sustainability Administrator. Can you hear me okay? Okay, sounds good. So I see the biggest value of being a member of Colorado Communities for Climate Action is that we're securing Westminster's voice on policy, rulemaking, other regulatory actions occurring at the state and federal level, that our voice, our Westminster priorities are being heard and listened to. So the $15,000 goes to securing that. Westminster will have a representative, either a councilor or a staff representative on the board of directors, along with 42 other neighboring municipalities that are part of this group. Working collectively, we can have an outsized impact on how the state is promoting tree planting, for example, or other climate-related initiatives. There's also, if we have certain analyses or questions on climate impacts to our city, obviously we know our own concerns, but if we need outside data or support, we can access that through membership in CC4CA. Briefings, just understanding the political landscape, we'd all get that through participating in this group. Collaboration is a big, maybe intangible benefit, but every member from C4CA highlights that as something that working together with all these other counselors and stakeholders on this has a really big impact on how they think about climate and how they shift policies both at the state and then within their local jurisdictions.
Any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
Councilor Camilio?
You were first. Okay. You're next on my list.
Okay.
They fixed my list.
All right. Well, so I don't know if I have a question for Mr. Tomlin outside of, I do understand that CC4CA, am I saying it right? I always question myself. They also advocate for transit as well. Is that correct?
Transportation is part of the topics in their policy priorities.
Yeah.
Right.
I think having the clout of and the strength of a lot of bodies of, different municipalities kind of coming together and pushing for something does help us through I think the clout that they bring when they are advocating for things. And for me, air quality is one of my key environmental concerns. I have a kid with asthma due to bad air quality, so that's not the only reason, but that is a driver for me, and I want to see good, healthy outcomes for our community as a whole. And I feel like being in this organization can help just continue to push for that. I also believe that, and know that they in the past have worked to ask for transit connections, and for us that's important regarding as we all are working to get Northwest Rail or some version of that through Front Range Passenger Rail, that they can also be a voice for us, and especially for communities up on the north end. So that's why I'm in support of this. Oops.
You're falling apart.
I know. I'm melting away. No, just kidding. Okay, so that's.
Councilor Carmelia.
Thank you. Bridger and Mayor Pro Tem perhaps more eloquently said my thoughts on the matter, but I want to make sure that my thoughts are echoed here as well, which is that this organization is a coalition of local governments which advocate for state and federal climate policy. And I believe that it is coalitions like this that provide our city the greater strength and leverage as a body across the Front Range to make asks and to take action at the state and federal level. And this coalition ensures that we're acting, as was just stated, in a collaborative manner with our fellow cities and counties. And I think it is important to ensure that we're in communication with them on these issues. And this is around issues that loom larger than we could possibly effectively tackle individually as cities, I believe. And so that is why I am in favor for joining them.
Councilor DeMont.
So I guess just because I was here when we were a member of it, and why I asked is I wanted to know if we've actually achieved anything. And you answered my question, and it sounds like the answer is no, because nobody can tell me what we did then that we weren't able to do otherwise being a member of CC4CA, which was part of the reason why we left. And hence why I wanted to know what we felt we would accomplish. And I think that is a lot of money. We have other budget things that we could spend that money on. So I guess it's not the cause. I think it's a good cause. It's the same reason why Bridger's here and we have a sustainability department. It's because we would like to address those things. So I just, from your perspective, like what things will you use CC4CA that we didn't use them for in the past? At this point, I'm not saying no. I'm just trying to understand why my no would be misplaced, because I'm sure that your department has use of that money as well.
Sure. So I can't fully speak to what we did when we were a member of it. I wasn't in the current role so I wasn't able to access CC4CA the way I would now that I'd be able to. However, I have gotten a slight taste of it. So obviously 40 hours a week is kind of all I have. And my main mission is focusing on how can I best serve the community, our businesses, and residents. And that only goes so far. When it comes to monitoring what's going on at the state, I don't quite have those resources. And CC4CA distills that into bite-sized chunks that I can digest, understand, return back to other city staff, return back to council. And I think that's a really powerful tool because there's a lot going on. We want to be informed. I want to be informed. And this would be the best conduit that I see for making that happen.
So if we approve it, I guess my ask would be that we have some sort of report back, on at least maybe every 6 months so that we could just see. So, I'm willing to support it if I just would like to see results, I guess, because that was part of the reason why we left it before, is it just seemed like it was I don't want to say it was just a club. I understand that the work that they were doing was real work. But it's just, what's the benefit to the city of Westminster when we have other needs? So if you in your department think that this is important, I could support it, but I would ask that we have some report back to see that the money's actually doing some sort of benefit in this area.
Yeah, we can definitely make that.
Councilor Zadi?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that I fully support your role. I like that we have your role now, and I'm looking forward to the great things that you'll do here. I'm supportive of this, of joining this club. We probably should have stayed in it the last time, and I'm glad that we hopefully might be joining it again this time. My ask would be the sustainability plan. I think we need more updates on that. We don't really ever get updates on that, so I would love to hear more about our execution of the sustainability plan that we have in place. That's something that needs a refresh, an update, and more communication, so I'm looking forward to those. I assume those are coming soon?
Yes, we have scheduled April 7th, so stay tuned.
Thank you.
Councilor Carmelia?
Thank you, Councilor DeMott. I think your questions are valid, and I appreciate them because I think it makes us be more actionable in this space, which is a good thing. I just wanted to acknowledge that the way you just described this, Bridger, made me think of it in a new light, which is that, I wish we had more of you. And when we think about it that way, that this in return is effectively like one extra staff member, $15,000 a year is a really affordable way to access a whole set of resources and information, and instead of a staff member like that, that's a really affordable way to have a whole extra space, right? And be able to do this effectively and efficiently, which is something I'm always looking for, is how can we more efficiently get the same thing done? Thank you.
Thank you. And City Manager Andrews, even quarterly or in your information notes to us, if you have something that you just can't wait and tell us about, we have, if you go through City Manager, we can get that information, and that would be very helpful so that when public asks us, we can share your story.
Sounds great.
Thank you. See no more questions, roll call, please.
Councilor Carmelia?
Yes.
Councilor DeMott?
Yes.
Councilor Azadi?
Yes.
Councilor Hott?
Yes.
Mayor McNally?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nurmela?
Yes.
And Councilor Ireland?
No.
The motion passes on a 6-1 vote.
That brings us to item B on the consent agenda. Councilor DeMont?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Reliant Mechanical Services to renovate the pools, heating and cooling systems at City Park Recreation Center in the amount of $904,150 plus 10% contingency of $90,415 for a total authorized expenditure not to exceed $994,565.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item B on the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
I just had a question following up from one of our public comments, and it's around the type of HVAC system and whether or not our existing facilities are conducive to transitioning over to alternative technologies or energy sources for this type of mechanical use.
Yeah, I can ask staff to come up and answer that. And while they prepare to come up for the question, I can tell you that we pursue a number of different angles with our facilities and sustainable sources of energy. For example, our 4 major facilities are 100% powered by solar through Solar Garden electricity purchases. In addition, this facility here, City Hall, is geothermal powered, and most people don't know that. We don't really talk about it a lot. That includes the walkway in on icy days. That's just ground heat that's keeping that from icing up. Those are just some examples, and I think Mr. Knippel can perhaps help with how we look at HVAC replacements for going from traditional to potentially other ways of
providing that.
These two items, both B and C, address the replacement of conventional air-to-air heat pump systems at the two facilities. I don't know if we, in this process, if we evaluated going over to geothermal, for example. My guess is that we did not. This was just a part of a maintenance project. I'd have to get back to you on whether or not we did or we did not evaluate that. And if we were to take a look at it, then what that would mean in terms of the additional costs that would be incurred by going to a geothermal. I think it would be. We could do it, but it'd be more money up front and there'd be a payback period over some period of time. On new buildings and replacements, we do evaluate the different types to lead us to a more LEED-friendly type of setup.
Thank you.
Roll call, please. Counselor Demott.
Yes.
Counselor Azadi.
Yes.
Counselor Hott.
Yes.
Mayor McNally.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nurmela.
Yes.
Counselor Ireland.
Yes.
And Counselor Carmelia.
Yes.
The motion passes on a 7-0 vote.
That brings us to consent agenda C. Counselor Demott.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to authorize city manager to execute a contract with Design Mechanical, Inc. to renovate the heating and cooling system at Westview Recreation Center in the amount of $846,965, plus a 10% contingency of $84,697 for a total authorized expenditure not to exceed $931,662.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve a consent agenda item 8C. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Azadi.
Yes.
Counselor Hott.
Yes.
Mayor McNally.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nurmela.
Yes.
Counselor Ireland.
Yes.
Counselor Carmelia.
Yes.
And Counselor Demott.
Yes.
The motion passes on a 7-0 vote.
That brings us to new business. Councilor's Bill number 1. Counselor Demott.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to pass Council Bill number 1 on first reading, approving the proposed modifications to Westminster Municipal Code Title 8, Chapter 10, relating to industrial pretreatment program.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pass Councilor's Bill number 1. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Carmelia?
Yes, I was hoping that we could, for the benefit of the public, discuss a little bit about the process for the wastewater plant. I do have some questions.
Ask your questions.
Okay. Just figured we'd give him a second.
Councilor Carmelia, I'm going to introduce Tanner Kraft. He's our wastewater treatment plant superintendent, and he'll be best qualified to respond to the process questions.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So in regards to this, and I had asked a lot of this beforehand, and so thank you, City Manager, for that. But I'm just curious, I think that it's beneficial for the public to understand what our water treatment looks like and what our waste process looks like. And so could you talk a little bit about what the water sampling looks like for the incoming waste, for the outgoing waste, and then how we go about monitoring and sampling waste from around the city, what parts of the city, whether commercial or residential, are part of that, and what are our standards regarding this process? Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Counselor. There's a lot to unpack there. So the process is a biological nutrient removal process, basically where we're relying on microbiology to do the treatment for us. We create the conditions where the good bacteria that do the work for us will thrive, and simultaneously the bad bacteria that we don't want have a disadvantage.
And a little closer to the microphone, or you can raise the podium too.
All right, thank you. And then for the sampling, we have a very robust process control sampling program where we can sample all parts of the process, essentially. We're looking at the primary constituents, which are in our NPDES permit. Stands for National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, part of the EPA program that delegates authority to the state of Colorado to issue that to us. So any of the constituents that are in our permit, we want to monitor and sample for throughout the entire process, starting at the head of the plant, I guess actually starting in the collection system with the pretreatment program, and then again at the head of the plant, and then throughout the entire process through to the end. Was there another part that I missed? Sorry.
Thank you so much for that. That helps explain what it is we're doing. And then where is it in our city? You know, is there places that we monitor consistently for point source pollution, or do we take random samples throughout the year? What does that look like?
Turn it over to Tara Wilson, the water quality supervisor.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm Tara Wilson. I'm the water quality program supervisor. So I run the pretreatment program for the city. So in terms of what we're looking at and how we do that throughout the city, we want to identify what our domestic sources are, because as a wastewater facility, we're designed to take the domestic waste. So we want to know what domestically what we have coming in, and a pretreatment program cannot control domestic sources. So there's 12 different locations throughout the city that have been identified as just domestic sampling locations. So we go out and actually collect samples in those manholes. And again, we're looking for the pollutants that are identified in our in our discharge permit, and also in our biosolids regulations. Those are 2 waste streams that we're looking at to make sure we're maintaining compliance with. So then we also want to identify what commercial sources we have, because if that is of interest to us, we can control that. So we have an additional 12 sites that are heavily just sources of commercial, whether that be fast food restaurants, commercial car washes, anything like that. And then we also sample our permitted industrial pretreatment, they're called significant industrial users that are in our system, so like Ball Aerospace. We sample them multiple times a year, again, to make sure we're able to categorize what is coming into the system, where it's coming from. If we see something new pop up in a commercial area, we'll dive deeper into that location to see what's going on. Is there a new business in there that we need to permit and control through our program?
Thank you so much. And how frequently does that happen? Is that annually?
It is annually, yes. For the big collection system, that's annually. And then our permitted industries are at least once a year. And then they also self-monitor at least monthly as well, and submit that to us as well.
Right. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. And I think it's beneficial for us all to understand how that works. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing nothing else, roll call, please.
Counselor Hott?
Yes.
Mayor McNally?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nurmela?
Yes.
Counselor Ireland?
Yes.
Counselor Carmelia?
Yes.
Counselor DeMott?
Yes.
And Counselor Azadi?
Yes.
The motion passes on a 7-0 vote.
Attorney Frankel, do we have reason for executive session after post-meeting?
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, there's one executive session agendized for council's consideration this evening, and that is to review and discuss city facility security measures pursuant to Westminster Municipal Code 1113C6 and Colorado Revised Statute 2464024D.
May I have counsel state your name and that you're willing to go into executive session after our post session?
Obi, is that a yes?
Claire Carmelia, yes.
Dave DeMott, yes.
Nancy McNally, yes.
Sarah Nurmela, yes.
Amber Hott, yes.
Christine Ireland, yes.
It is 8:07 and this meeting is adjourned. Good night.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you to Mr. Munch for being here. Mr. Munch has drafted some ordinances for City Council's consideration. Before we set them onto an agenda, though, we wanted to talk to you about them and get some direction as to whether or not to move them forward for your consideration. So without further ado, Mr. Munch, on our first presentation of the evening is to potentially address 71-10 of the code regarding elections on recall petition.
Thank you very much. Assistant City Attorney Matthew Munch, thanks for having me here. I know you all have a very busy night ahead of you, so I'll try to be as brief as I can. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read the agenda memo. I tried to outline everything in there. For the most part, the changes proposed in this ordinance are housekeeping things. They're to bring the code in line with what is already required by either the charter or provisions of the Colorado Revised Statutes or federal law, or all three. I would be very happy to walk through each of the changes if you wanted me to, but knowing how busy you are tonight, perhaps it'd be better to just ask if there are any questions or direction from council or anything that it causes particular concern.
Let's see if there's any questions. Everybody good? Okay, we're good. That was quick.
Easiest presentation ever. Although I think I might be able to top it with this next one. Next up, of course, if you don't mind me moving on to the next one. This is an opportunity essentially opened up for the city by the passage of House Bill 24-1283, codified in section 145, 111.7 of the Colorado Revised Statute. It allows us to do something we weren't allowed to do before, which is if we end up in a situation where there's a campaign finance complaint that represents a conflict of interest or even a potential conflict of interest for the clerk or the clerk staff, instead of having to handle it ourselves for lack of other options, we can now kick such a complaint up to the Secretary of State's office for them to handle. This is nice because of that potential. We just don't have to put our city clerk in a difficult position, and it is important to remember two things. One, this doesn't obligate us to do anything on any particular complaint. It's just an option we have. It just gives us more flexibility without cutting off any options. And second, this isn't necessarily, there's no reason to think that our city clerk will be involved in anything like this, but this is for every, city clerks 20 years from now, who knows what might happen. Better to have this in our back pocket than it costs us.
Questions on this one?
No. Is there a situation this has happened that we're concerned about?
It's with the number of cities in the Front Range, it's hard for me to imagine that it hasn't happened somewhere at some point, particularly smaller cities where, there might be a lot more people related and there aren't. I can't think of a specific incident that's happened here or anywhere else, but I'm sure that it has. I have no reason to suspect it will happen, save for the fact that time is long, and if it gives us an option without obligating us to do anything, I figure might as well.
I'm just asking, what if the Secretary of State has a conflict of interest?
It wouldn't help them. They would have to refer it to. I'm not sure who the Secretary of State
Who do they
would
refer it to?
Yeah. Maybe this did happen in Grand Junction or something. I'm not really sure what drove the state legislature to put this up for us, but it's a nice option to have.
Okay.
I'll just comment is that from what I've seen and heard from residents over the last several years, I just think that this is a great step in the right direction towards accountability and transparency, and I think we're doing the right things. So thank you.
If there's nothing else on that one, like I said, moving right along. Last one is a little simpler than it would at first seem. There is a conflict between the way that the city handles unclaimed intangible personal property and the way that the state does. Now, it's important to remember that we're talking about intangible personal property. As much as we would like this to be tangible personal property, we would love to hand all of the stuff that we gather over to the state. That's not what they're asking to do. The state provisions have reporting requirements for intangible personal property. They have, after a certain amount of time, we're supposed to give that intangible property over to the state. That intangible property is almost always in the form of money or money equivalent. Credits, charges, things like that. It represents I don't have the exact number, but it's an insignificant amount of resources that the city has access to. It's stuff that sort of defaults to us because there's nowhere else for it to go. The state has sent us essentially a letter notifying us about this, and they think that we're obligated to do all sorts of things to report to them. But there is an out in state law that if we make these changes to our code and provide for a 5-year notice period where we have let everybody who we can think of know that we have this intangible property, then after that 5-year, we can apply our code to it, and we are essentially opted out of the state division. So by doing this, as I said, it ends up being a 5-year delay instead of a 3-month delay of taking acquisition of an insignificant amount of resources. And it gets us out of the position of having to either make onerous reports to the state or getting into an unpleasant and unnecessary conflict with the state that would almost certainly cost the city more money than we would ever gain from in the form of intangible personal property. So it's something of a win-win. It allows us to govern our own affairs. It gives anybody who might have forgotten that that we have some of their money a little bit longer of a chance to claim it, and we'll have plenty of opportunities to fight with the state about something else. Any questions on this?
Go ahead. Just curious. So if we have it for 5 years, do we have to give notification to the person or family member?
We have to give notification to. What do I have here? Essentially, we have to give a written notification to who we think is the rightful owner of it. Most of the time when something like this comes into possession of the city, it's from a business that has essentially gone out of business. If we know who it belongs to, usually we never even get here. We just return it to them. They are very happy to take it. This really only comes up when we have something we either don't know who it belongs to, or we know who it belongs to, but we simply cannot find them because they don't exist anymore, or they just won't return any calls. And that's usually a business that has disappeared for whatever reason. For my discussions with staff, it happens very, very rarely and represents a truly insignificant amount of money. But at the end of the day, eventually it would default to us because there's nowhere else for it to go. 5 years is certainly plenty of time for such a person to live claim to it. But yes, we would have to give notice to them. And it is written out in the order.
Just once.
I believe just once. And
That's what I
think-
wasn't clear on. Like, it requires additional work or not. But it sounds like in essence, this is reducing our workload.
Yeah, one notice of to the owner. Otherwise, we would have to make any number of reports to the state, and really what it would be is over and over again us telling the state we really don't have anything to report, or yep, we still have this and we can't find out who it belongs to. But yes, those reports to the state are probably more onerous than anything else that we would want to do. And like I said, it's an insignificant amount of money. So us gaining an insignificant amount of money that we all admit doesn't belong to us in 5 years rather than in a period of months, small price to pay to not have to deal with the state on this, in my opinion.
Everybody okay? Thank you.
Quickest 3 ordinances I've ever done. So do we have direction to bring these forward for council? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt. Next up, City Manager, we have a presentation.
You.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Chris Lindsay, Assistant City Manager. Tonight you will hear from the Public Works and Utilities Department. They're here to provide an overview of the department's 2025 budget, functional areas, and priorities. This effort is one of the action items from your budget reflection session to have department directors more involved communicating existing operations, needs, and priorities. These presentations are intended to offer an overview for council and the public to gain a better understanding prior to engaging in the development of the 2026 budget later this year. With that, I'll turn it over to Public Works and Utilities Director, Paul Knipple.
Good evening, Mayor. Council. I'd like to introduce, before I get started, I want to introduce our our 3 division managers for the department. So you'll see we're divided up principally into 3 structures within the department. So we have Andrea Song, who is our division manager over the utilities operations. Joe Merzinski is our division manager over operations. And John Burke is our city engineer, division manager over the engineering division. All right. So the Public Works and Utilities Department is all about infrastructure, the publicly run and owned infrastructure. So the department plans, designs, constructs, inspects, maintains, and operates roadways, traffic management systems, drainage systems, water distribution, wastewater collection, and all the treatment that goes in there with it. So in addition to those 4 services, the department provides its own support services by way of fleet management and also our GIS and asset management. So this is our basic organizational structure here, and our budget and our FTE count here. So there's the 3 divisions that I just introduced, in addition to the administration part there. And I'll describe the presentation describes each of these boxes, the budget behind them, the number of people that support these functions, and then what those different divisions do. So a highlight here on this slide is that in the column there in kind of the middle of the table, it says FY23, and then the next column is FY24 to the right. At the bottom, there was a big jump in the number of full-time equivalent employees, and that was due to the reorganization that occurred in 2023. A lot of what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is a result of that, kind of where we've been, where we are now, and where we're going. Generally speaking, the reorganization combined and absorbed other functions from different departments within the city into Public Works, which had prior to that been primarily a utility that had a street function with it and some engineering. Prior to the reorganization, engineering functions, as we know them traditionally in other cities and other places, was distributed throughout different departments in the city. It was also spread. The stormwater department was spread out. It brought that into place. It brought our GIS into the department, as well as fleet and facilities maintenance. So it combined a lot of things that were residing in different parts of the city that were interrelated, really, that need to be together, in my opinion, so that you can have a good feedback loop. What do you build? How does it operate? And how do we maintain it? And we sort of has this sort of circular effect. We are now organized really a lot in alignment with a lot of other larger cities. Sometimes utilities is split off into its own thing, but in a city of our size, it's not uncommon to have all of these things together. So it's a good blend of like-minded and like-task people and functionality. So the first box that we want to talk about just briefly here is the administration division. And the salary, we have 8 people in here, includes myself, the 3 division managers, management analyst, an executive assistant, and then 2 other administrative assistants. So that's principally the people that are in here. This division, the funding for this is combined. The department operates off multiple different funds: the water fund, the stormwater fund, general fund. And so the way that the department is funded and operates is from these different sources. And so this division here is funded from different sources as well. In 2023, the department went through the official reorganization, and this changed reporting structure. It changed reporting structures within PWU, and it reflected sort of the reorganization and combination or the addition of these other functional areas. I was hired in late 2023. In 2024, we went through largely kind of figuring out where we were and what we had, and trying to stabilize ourselves. We had some new leadership put into place, and how are all these different groups working together? We now had shared responsibilities. We had some functionality that had been in one place had been shifted to another, but we spent most of 2024 sort of settling into what we had and discerning where we needed to go. And as a result of that, as we closed out last year, it really became apparent to me that we really needed to focus on 4 basic areas for our department going forward as a whole. And really what it boils down to is looking at, are we doing the right things in the right way, at the right time? Are we going through the organization and scrubbing all of our processes, our staffing, or our workload, rather, and staffing? And then also, how are we taking care of all of the thousands of pieces and parts that make up the water distribution system, our 750 some odd pieces that are in fleet, 37 buildings, and all of the same components that go within that? How are we looking at as a whole? All of the different divisions and folks have been doing some form of workload assessments, of process improvements, of asset management, but we haven't done it comprehensively and throughout the entire department in a way that we can roll it all up and have an executive level sort of assessment report card about where we're trending on how we're operating. So that's what these 4 different goals, and I presented this all to our department. We have a work plan here we put together for 25. It didn't really mesh with the slide presentation, but it does go into some detail about all of these things. And just briefly, I'd like to just run through them because I think it really colors where we're going and what our priorities are for this next year. We hear a lot about asset management, and that's really just how much money do we need to spend and on what and when? What's above the line and what's below the line? What's preventative maintenance and what do we need to do to repair broken things, and what do we need to do to prepare for development? And so it's financial as well as just a list of projects and timing for those things. But we want to be able to demonstrate that we have a good handle on things and that it's been looked at totally, so that when we bring the council a project, that you can have confidence that it fits into context with everything else that is going on. It's not just a one-off thing. It's part of an overall strategy about how to keep these systems functional and delivering the service that they need to for the city. So the asset management right now, where we are with that, we're building the integrity of our data, of the integrations across our work order systems and our GIS system, just so that as we move forward, we're collecting things from all these different groups, projecting in a consistent way. So it's going to take some time. It's not going to be one and done this year. I've asked for a deliverable that we get a basic report, a first generation version of where we are across all of our different asset types, by the end of the year. Sort of what's our gap analysis with these things? Are we on track, et cetera? And what does the profile look like going forward? The self-assessment is where we're going to go through really how are we doing things? What are our processes and our policies that we have in place? We have a lot of things written down right now. We have a lot of things that are residing in senior level people's heads that need to be put down on paper to pass on to the next folks. And we need to really go through and just make sure that what we're doing is what we really need to be doing. And I think our staff does that on a routine basis, but this will be a deliberate effort to really take a good look at everything that we're loading up and that we're taking on as work, and that we're doing it in the right way, most efficient way. We're going to use the American Public Works Association accreditation process. They have a practices manual that is so thick, and it basically kind of gives you a framework upon which to
to guide your review. And Andrea has graciously taken on to lead that for the entire department. So she's already out the gate and running on that that effort toward ultimately toward accreditation. But it's really going to be about the journey and how we involve our staff in that to get to that point. The workload analysis is basically an itemization of all the things that we're doing and a justification for what we're doing, and then the time that it takes to do those things. So we really want to understand what's behind of all of our work and how much time. Again, some of the divisions have done this effort in various degrees, but I would like to have it done as a whole for the department. And then lastly, which is a little different than the first three, it's engagement here, but it's really about collecting, identifying, capturing, and reflecting all of the work that our staff does throughout the city on a daily basis. Whether we're cleaning things in our sewer pipelines, whether we're fixing potholes, whether we're making major changes out at one of our plants. The 211 people in this department do a tremendous amount of work all the time. It just doesn't get talked about. And I'd like for us to begin to build a record of that, build a portfolio of that, and begin to communicate that out. Again, all of these things are about the words that have been used tonight: transparency. The ratepayers and taxpayers own this stuff, and so they have, I think, a right to be able to see what it is that we're working on and have some of these documents in place that show that we're on track with what we're supposed to do. So all these things work together. It's a big bite. It's not just going to be for 25. This is going to go on, but we're going to make some substantial progress this year. So went a little long on that, but I thought it's important because so we have three divisions again, three major divisions, and I'm just going to go through those here. The city engineer division has four different sections in it that include our utilities engineering division, which is the largest. There's 60 people in the city engineer's office. The utilities engineering we have a lot of the design engineer staff, our project managers who are managing projects, but it also includes our water quality folks. You heard from Tara tonight. She works in utilities engineering, and also our stormwater group. So that's a big unit within the city engineer's office. There's also development and mobility. This was formerly over in community services, so this is our development review folks. It's also our traffic engineers and our traffic signal technicians resolve here. So the neighborhood things that we encounter with speeding and so forth, or our traffic management systems also go in this. So traffic management and development are kind of coupled together, so they're in one unit. The other unit is or other section rather, is our roadways and facilities project managers, and then all of our construction in that group, as well as our right-of-way management group. So within the city's public rights-of-way, there's a roadway, there's sidewalks, but there's an awful lot of stuff underground. Some of it the city owns and operates, and a lot of it that are owned by private franchises. So they all have a right to go act within the city's right-of-way, but we can permit that and keep track of what they're doing and have some control over it. And then lastly, in the city engineer's office is our asset management and GIS. So they're coupled together. We have 8 people there. This is the overall budget, the personnel and contract services. And again, there's multiple funding sources for the city engineers. Priorities for 2025 for this division include the drinking water, the new drinking water facility, and the raw water line, finished water line. Those are major projects. Also, the municipal court project, as well as we have a master plan update for our Big Dry Creek wastewater treatment plant that we want to finish up. We have a traffic calming policy that is being finalized that will help guide our decision-making process on on various ways to address speeding and other things within neighborhoods and around school zones. We'll have implement the Independence Drive traffic calming. We're getting some recommendations, and then we'll have some public engagement process after that before we move forward to final design on that work. And that's from 88th all the way up to Wadsworth is the scope of that. We've also got some fairly significant traffic signal improvements at 28 different intersections. So this is a lot of the hardware that goes into those systems, as well as some accessibility improvements. Those are some of those are in the URA up north, and then others were highway safety improvement programs. And then the last bullet item here is to continue our efforts to facilitate the internet expansion throughout the city through franchise. Okay, moving on. The second one here is the operations division. This includes our fleet maintenance, facility maintenance, and street maintenance. We have a total FTE count of 45 people in these three sections, and with a total budget this year, 25 of just over $17 million. The operations division's priorities for 2025. We provide a very high level of fleet availability. 95% is the goal, and to hit 100% of on-time completion of our critical preventative maintenance. We're trying to move much more toward preventative maintenance than reactive. You want to be 80%, I think, is the goal for preventative over reactive maintenance if you can get to it. We incorporate more of the use of telematics data. So this refers to devices that are on vehicles that can monitor and report speed, hours of utilization, erratic driving, fast starts and fast stops. Gives us a lot of good information about our fleet. Principally, one of the things we've used it for is to be able to look across the fleet and just see what the runtime is on vehicles, and are we using it? What's the utilization of the fleet? And if it's not up there, then it maybe doesn't need to be replaced or it needs to be combined. But again, we're looking at a way to, are we doing the right things with the right way? So Joe and his team have some really good insights into this. And then, the ongoing type things that we keep up with out of the operations division is the major shutdowns and cleanings and maintenance activities at our 6 recreations. And then provide for snow and ice control. Which I should say that more than half of the employees that participate in that are out of utilities. In fact, I think it may be closer to 2/3. Two-thirds are actually water utilities employees that do that work, so that we can keep all of the routes staffed.
Well, they're the best.
Thank you. And by the way, they'll be off tomorrow and be called in tomorrow evening at 4, is what I've been told, in anticipation of the weather tomorrow evening.
We can get home tonight, Christine.
And so lastly, with Andrea's division here, you can see all of the different numbers of things that we have. So I won't read all of that, but there's an awful lot of potable water lines, a lot of wastewater lines, all in the ground. And if you think that each mile is 5,280 feet, that's a lot. That's a lot of footage of pipelines in the ground. And it's not. There are forces on these pipelines. The ground moves, the water moves. We have metal pipes in some cases throughout the city that just corrode. So they're not just static things in the ground. It moves, and so we have breaks. The goal is to have less than 15 breaks per year per 100 miles of pipe, and we're about half of that right now, but we still have between 30 and 50 or so breaks annually. So that's about an average, about once a week. There's something that breaks that has our folks out in the field. And then there's a fairly significant reclaimed water distribution system, which is a really great offset to the use of potable water for irrigation purposes. And then here this year we began to transition. We haven't done a lot of in-house stormwater maintenance of our drainage system. There was some discussion about that at a prior meeting, and so we're trying to get back to where we're having more attention spent to our drainage inlets and our outfalls and things like that to keep water moving. So we're making some personnel reclassifications to address that. And utilities division there, we've got we're right at 98 people in that division with the 2025 budget of over $29 million. The highlights or priorities rather for 2025, we've got in our water distribution team within the utilities division, we have a construction group, and then we also have a maintenance group. Construction group replaces 6,000 to 10,000 feet or so of pipe and ground every year, just in neighborhoods where we have frequent breaks. And so they'll be along Tennyson and Wolf, and then in the trail side and Northridge Manor subdivision, which is right here to the east of City Hall. Cobblestone is not one that we're doing. This was from an earlier version, but we've got a number of subdivisions in the city where we're going to be working this year. We're going to begin to make some of the equipment upgrades at Big Dry wastewater treatment plant. We want to really lean in more to our reclaimed water distribution system. We've had a lot of deferred maintenance over the past few years, and we just now this year in 24 got to where we were doing some active work on that system, including adding some valves so that when we do have breaks, we can better isolate it and not have the system being out of service in large parts of the city. And then we have a fairly aggressive cleaning and televising and rehab program for 25 for our wastewater collection pipeline. And with that, I left off a lot. This was a very high level sort of thing. If you're interested, we've got other organizational charts. We really based it on these three boxes here. We talked a little bit about these boxes, but then we have a whole lot of other ones that splinter off from there in terms of the organizational structure. We've also got our work plan for 2025, which is a little bit more user-friendly than our presentation here tonight and gives you a little bit more detail about what we're up to Public Works and Utilities. With that, I'll open it to any questions or discussion.
Questions? Oh, Mayor Pro Tem?
So thank you. This was really helpful, especially hearing about how you're transitioning into a bigger team and how you're approaching that. I had just a couple of things that are more specific, maybe that might happen this year, and then just something for as we go into budgeting process. The questions for this year are we pursuing the increase in the utility fee on the water bill for at least commercial uses? We had talked about that, about increasing it like $1 or something, and we sort of left off
for the roadway work or for the water utilities?
For roadway.
For roadway.
I don't know what we exactly call the impact.
We had yes. So last summer we brought forth some information on our roadway improvement fee as it exists. Well, primarily on the funding and on where we were trending with our payment quality index. And we presented a couple of ideas about where to go with that, kind of separating out the commercial versus residential. And I think we've taken a step back to allow this to be part of an overall infrastructure conversation with respect to maybe some of the other core services and infrastructure, including maybe the fire services. So in April, we'll be coming back with, I believe, some further information April 7th or so.
Okay.
So we haven't forgotten about that.
Okay. Yeah, then I guess that leads into my other question about, I don't know if the elixir conversation is the April 7th conversation, but just like, what is, what is keeping you up at night regarding, your needs, as for what you feel like your department needs, particularly looking into the 2026 timeframe.
Yes. The roadway funding, we're losing our buying power with that. So that's something we really need to keep an eye on. The trend, right now our score is considered acceptable, and we've stayed flat the last couple of years. So you want to watch that. The other things, there's two other things that kind of make me concerned. We've got at least 3 different types of positions that are pretty technical, and you don't just go find people to perform these duties off the shelf, so to speak. And one of those is with our traffic signal technicians. We've got 2 people that are basically on call 24/7 between the 2 of them for any knockdown or an outage, and they show up every day enthusiastic, but it's got to be getting old, and there's not really the contractor bank out there to go pull from. That has gotten really slim in the past few years in terms of the expertise and the ability to just go hire a contractor to be on call for you. These kind of positions they're really grown into the organization. They learn the system, and it's sort of a hybrid of somebody who's kind of a programmer, an electrician, but knows about traffic signal operation. So it's a unique kind of thing, and that's one that I worry about them. I worry about that we could use some more capacity in our emergency vehicle technician role. The numbers per asset, that ratio is really low for our fleet maintenance, just in general, but particularly with the emergency vehicle tech. And to the extent that we can keep that big fire apparatus out of a shop someplace, the much better off Westminster is going to be. So we have one fully qualified, fully certified EVT right now. And the progression is there for others to move into that role. So we want to promote that. But that's some capacity that we have that is not easily come by. And then also our what's called our SCADA engineers, SCADA technicians. They're the supervisory control and data acquisition is what SCADA stands for. But that's basically the running our systems electronically from a laptop or a remote location. So we have SCADA operators that are helping us operate our treatment plants, for example, and all of our pump stations and other things out in the field. And there are also positions that are not. You just don't necessarily go to school to become a SCADA technician. You're trained into that sort of role, and you learn the city. So those 3 types of things, particularly the traffic technicians, are just some of them that I worry about. And, we've got a lot of other expertise in our operations folks out at these wastewater and water treatment plants that I just, I don't want us to get too thin with some of those roles, because those are highly qualified, and it takes years to get speed on how to run these plants. So I don't perceive that we're necessarily in danger in those respects, but that's just other. So it comes down to personnel, just having the expertise in-house to keep these things working. Long answer to your question.
Helpful. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Island?
Yeah, I think you were first. Go for it. So when you combined departments, you told us you combined with. Do you tell me what they were again?
They were initially Public Works and Utilities was primarily just the utility department. So our plants, our distribution, our collection, and then the street operations was there as well. And then they also had some engineering capacity to go and do some of the utility projects. That there was at that same time, 22, 21, and earlier, we had civil engineers over in community services that were doing development review, stormwater engineering, and some other capital projects. The two didn't necessarily talk. The city also, prior to the reorganization, had fleet management and the facilities management in the general services department. So in an effort to reduce the number of departments, there's a consolidation occurred, is the way I understand it. And so the department now, in addition to just being utilities and streets, has all of the engineering functions with it, and the fleet maintenance, facilities maintenance, and in our GIS and some other things, all in one spot now. We're all over at the Municipal Services Center on the campus there, within the fence. We're co-located.
So do you think that makes you more efficient than you were before?
That's the idea.
That's the idea, but personally, you think it is?
I think so, and we're going to find it here as we go through and we spend more time together and we have more conversations and more opportunities to bump into one another because we're all kind of working on the same things. We're working on infrastructure. We've got. I'll give you some examples. One would be our right-of-way management. We've had stormwater inspectors out there looking at right-of-way and construction. We have our construction inspectors looking at private development. We have, and then we have our right-of-way management people who are out there watching over these contractors. But we take all of those inspection duties and put them housed into one spot. They have an opportunity to cross-train. They have an opportunity to eliminate redundancies. And at least we've got people that are looking at the same piece of ground in the same room together. So that's one example of that.
So were you able to use less employees, or you got to get more employees, or it's the same?
We have been flat. We have made some reclassifications of employees because where we found a need in one group. So in some respects, we might be reducing our future ask for employees if we have a vacancy in one area that we can get by without that job, or move it into something else. And an example of that here recently is that we had we were trying to take on more work with our stormwater system. We've got a lot of needs that are out there, and we just had an approval for a contract for I forget how much it was. It was $750,000, I think, over the next 4 or 5 years. And but how do we manage that? And so instead of asking for a new FT for somebody to manage that, we had a vacancy in the engineering side. So we took an engineering position and reclassified it into a supervisor position to own that. So that's something we didn't necessarily have to go to council with. But because we had those groups all kind of co-housed, we were able to have that coverage. It's a lot of content for one director to get his head around, but we have really good subject matter experts back here with John and Joe and Andrea, and they all work really well together, and so do their staff. We're pulling superintendents and supervisors together that hadn't been together before. So I wouldn't be ready to take it apart at this point. Yeah, give it a chance to work.
All right, thanks.
Amelia?
Yes, thank you. Concerning the discussion that you were just speaking to around the technical roles that are tricky to fill, do we have an internal upskilling program or mentoring or cross-training program that we work on in the city where folks are, looking to level up?
That's something that we've all discussed. We don't have anything formalized just yet. That is, well, I'll give one example where we are doing that is with our within the inspector role. So we've had, prior to the reorganization, we had inspectors that were in the street department who whose primary job was to go and look at the contract work that is being done, the milling and overlay, and then the contract concrete repair. And so their band of focus was fairly narrow. Now we have those positions combined with our construction inspectors who are looking at water and sewer and all sorts of things, grading, drainage, development, capital, and new street construction. And so they're now being combined with these other individuals who have a broader breadth of experience. They're being asked to step up and learn those things too.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that. That's not exactly the same as saying there's new levels of progression being built, but there is that opportunity for cross training and getting more out of the people that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And really giving them a chance to do something more than just narrow things.
Right. Okay. I'm sure it's top of mind, hopefully, when we're looking at new recruits, putting them under. My head is around the streetlights, right? That seems to be a tricky one to fill. So maybe we start somewhere else and train them, or keep them, even if they're working daily, maybe 80% of their time on their real job, if 20% of their time for a year or two, they can train, I don't know how that works, but just throwing it out there. Yeah.
And we have that very thing right now.
Oh, fantastic.
But we get into two where one group doesn't want to lose somebody to go over to another thing. And then, well, how am I going to backfill that? So that's where the director comes in and says, well, we're just going to be short, or we're going to offset it some other way, and trying to let them arm wrestle over that. But we have some people who want to move into that.
Right. That's great. Well, then I want to concentrate on the first slide and just dish out praise. It's so good to hear that we're focusing on strategic processes, and I love that we're going after accreditation. That's exciting, and congratulations. And it sounds like we're moving in all the right directions. We've talked about asset management a lot at this point, and I think that's a good thing that we're focusing on that, because I think if we're truly organized as an enterprise and if we're truly transparent to the public, then we have a strong asset inventory management process. And so I'm glad to see that's in the works, and I think that's our responsibility to do. So thank you.
Councilor Zadi?
Thank you, first of all. I think you've joined a growing list of your colleagues that have come in and had some pretty great presentations of your department, so I think this is pretty thorough. I have a few questions. One was related to the water main breaks. How do you prioritize water main breaks? What measures do you use, and what's your process for prioritizing which ones to do? Or do you do them is it when you said once per week? Do you preventatively, is my real question, how do you preventatively prioritize those?
So we fix them as they break. When we see water coming out of the ground, then we go fix it. And that's usually that happens. We can't. That's reactive. The Wolf Street, Tennyson, Northeast, Northridge Manor, right behind us over here. Those are all neighborhoods that have had a lot of breaks. So we will deploy our water main construction crew to go out and proactively replace those water lines. So it'll be a place where we've spent a bunch of time tearing up pavement and replacing water lines. We have to add that into Andrea's group will go. There's a whole separate crew that goes and replaces those water mains in those neighborhoods where we know we've had a lot of breaks. And we do that in neighborhoods. And if it's something like we've got one of our major projects for this year is Lowell Boulevard. We've had a lot of breaks, but it's a heavily traveled roadway. So our folks won't do that. It's a much bigger job, so we'll contract that out. But usually we will prioritize just based on where we're having the most problems. And as we project into out years, it gets a little more fuzzy because we don't know. We know stuff is going to break and continue to need to be replaced. We don't know where yet, but we look at the age of the pipeline, how long it's been in the ground. We look at pipe material. PVC lasts much longer than a lot of the metal pipe that we have in the ground. We know that. And then we also do sort of a risk-based analysis. So what's the likelihood that something's going to fail? And then what's the consequence of failure? So, you know, the age, the material, the risk profile, if there's any other regulatory drivers, those are all boxes that we'll check off that will tell us put something above the line or below the line in a given year.
And you say you do it by neighborhood?
Uh,
when you go in to fix something, do you look at the whole thing?
Sometimes so for 25, we've got just a couple of streets that are within a different neighborhood, and then there's 2 other neighborhoods that we're going to try to do as much of those as we can, because we just feel like if we're in there, we need to go ahead and they were all put in at the same time, and we continue to have problems in there, so let's go ahead and knock out the entire subdivision.
And what's the average cost of when something does happen, when a break occurs? What's the average cost of the city?
I don't know. It's probably
the experts back there know.
Depends on the size of the break.
Andrea, could you come to?
Yeah, sorry.
Give you a little more flavor.
Just to add on to what Paul was saying, we do have master plans as well on our distribution system. So we had our last master plan from 2015, and so that has given us a roadmap over 10 years on exactly which lines need replacing. So we have a pretty extensive plan, and it is based on age. I mean, you heard about Tennyson, and you're talking about historic Westminster. Those lines are very old. So with that construction crew, they really go in and prioritize based on age, condition, as you said. But in terms of breaks, we have our in-house crew, which is cheaper than hiring an on-call contractor. We've had breaks if they're smaller. I mean, I would say, you know, I don't know, it's hard to say, an 8-inch or something, $3,000. But if it's, you know, a 24-inch on 120th and it's emergency, and we're putting out a lot of customers and there's traffic control, it could be $40,000. So, you know, and sometimes just with this pipe and settlement and changes in temperature, even, you know, where a contractor has gone in there and taken off the protection, so it's corroded unexpectedly. We try, you know, to stay on top of it, and but there is a little bit of reactive in any distribution system. But we really are, you know, our standards in the AWA main break, American Water Works Association, is a standard. We're well above what a lot of cities are at for main break numbers.
How often are we replacing preventative? So you have the list.
Mm-hmm.
You prioritize the list.
Mm-hmm.
How often are you going in?
Well, engineering also, you can talk John too, because engineering has we have our own in-house distribution construction crew, but they can't handle all of the larger pipe replacement, like the lower boulevard. So engineering is in there replacement as well.
That's great, Council. Question, Councilor. We have a very robust capital improvement program where we look at literally every pipe that's in the ground, from ductile iron, cast iron, asbestos, cement, PVC. That is in a major spreadsheet, like Paul was talking about, from likelihood of failure, consequence of failure, and so we have that literally detailed out, and that is what builds our capital replacement program. In addition, I think some of the collaboration with our operations side now is Andrea's team's going out there operating valves, doing fire hydrant blow-offs, or identifying those things in advance. Development review side of things as well. So we know, like the uplands and a couple other areas that are even what is now the Toll Brothers there on 104th and Sheridan. We have some aged asbestos cement water lines. We're taking the opportunity to work with the developer to replace that aging infrastructure while they're in building their new development. So we're collaborating more with private and our own internal house, kind of the public side of things. So that is what drives our program. And then importantly, like Paul mentioned, we're going to do our best to make sure if we have water line replacement, we go do that work first, and then we're looking at complete streets. What does that road section want to look like? We're actually doing asphalt, concrete curb and gutter, street lights, signage, you know, on-street bike lanes, whatever that is. We really want to touch a street once, and that was kind of what was driving the neighborhood by neighborhood process is that we want to make as minimal disruption, but the best positive impact we do.
And that coordination with our department coming together is the big benefit, because we're all talking, we're communicating on which projects are happening when, so we are only going to engage.
So quantitatively, frequency-wise, how often is this occurring when you're going in? So you're coordinating with multiple, 3 times a year, once a month?
I would say, so Stephanie Blacker on Leslie's team that works for me, she's probably over on the ops side a couple times a week.
Couple times a week?
Oh yeah, it's constant contact.
Where is actually where the work is being done, or coordinating?
Planning, identifying, when we have a break, what caused the break? Was it something with the treatment facilities, high pressure? Was it demand on the system? We had that happen, I think, last year. We had peak demand on the system that how many breaks in a 2-week period?
10.
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
And so we said, what happened? So her team does a hot wash, debrief, and then we say on a capital side, okay, what needs to be replaced, or is it more operational? It's a living beast that we're kind of dealing with on a daily.
So I guess what I'm getting at is for the budget process that's coming up, it would be good to see where I guess maybe even that list of,
We have them.
So that we can help, if the speed of implementation is not to your liking and we can help with that from a budget standpoint, tell us, hey, there's these 10, these 10 neighborhoods really need water main replacements, or it's going to be a problem next year. We need to know these things so I think there's more transparency needed, data-wise.
One thing we really talk, we have all our tools to project about what we're going to need, but when that time comes, we don't just go replace it because it's at a certain age. There's something telling us it does need to be replaced. So we don't have, whether there's a high risk or just the age, just simply because it hits a certain point doesn't mean that it's time to go and say we have to replace it. We need to have some evidence that, yeah, it is failing. And to your point, I didn't bring those lists, but I mean, right now we've just for 2025, we've across all funds, not just water, but our general capital improvement fund and everything, we've got over $42 million capital project in 25. That's over 70 projects that are on the book. Those are either in design or construction or about to be in 25. So there's a fairly big load. It's a big list. One thing I didn't mention is the cost of service study that is underway right now. They're working with finance. That's our rate analysis. So a big part of what drives the water rates is the cost of service. A big part of what drives the cost of service is the capital load. And so I think this is going to come out as we're looking at that and we're going, why are these numbers so high from this cost of service? I think that's going to be a good time for council to really ask staff what is in this and why, and we will have that for you. And we realize we're not operating in an unconstrained environment, but just kind of what we really think we're going to need. Anyway, we do have those lists.
That cost of service is coming soon.
It's underway now, and it'll be over the course of this year that it's being developed. We just now had a kind of a kickoff meeting with the consultant that helps generate that. But they've been asking our department for our capital load and any projections on staff.
Will we have that by budget time or not?
I don't think so. I don't think so. It's going to be a
next year thing.
Probably.
Okay. And that's really the cost. Our reduced buying power is kind of my angst, right? Is every day we spend not doing maintenance projects or improvement, the costs are just going to be exponential. So there's an urgency, right? So I'm glad to hear that you're prioritizing it, and I just ask that you bring it and you don't be shy and say, hey, here's what's critical and here's what's not during this budget process. Same with roads. So similarly, I think I may have asked this before, I'm not sure, but a list of roads, PQI by road. Do we have that of Westminster roads?
Yes.
Have we received that?
I don't know that you've received
Okay.
it in detail. Yes.
That would be great so that we can see, here's the visual, right? And then even by geography, because we'll see the streets. What are the worst PQIs so that we know where to focus and how much money to prioritize. And finally, traffic calming infrastructure. I was curious how closely you work with the PD on all the speeding stuff to do preventative infrastructure improvements that may help reduce the speeding crisis that we have right now. Is that something you can speak to tonight, or Chief is here? Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. So I think, yeah, Chief Albert's in the back. We can talk. We got him on speed dial with his team for sure. So whenever we get a concern, complaint from a resident, we're typically out there, take a look at what the situation is, if it's geometric, if it actually is speeds, if it's the volumes, time of day. So right now we'll be publishing the traffic calming policy, and we'll be bring that to this body for review this year. So that's already currently underway. And we have the Independence Drive project that will be one of our first deployments of the results of that study. So a lot of levers when it comes to that, from speed indication, speed tables, traffic circles, delineators, narrowing, kind of creating friction in those areas. So it's something we're super aware of. We want to be more, I would say, categorically across the board, understanding why we're doing what we're doing, not being reactive, but more proactive in those areas.
Okay. And again, budget's coming up, so don't be shy.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to, when we talk about budget, though, I want us to be cognizant that that's part of the enterprise. So that's limited funds. We don't just get a, say, more money to that. I mean, I'm always open to using part of the part that Tabor says that we can use out of the general fund, but we've got pushback on that. But so I just want to make that a point, because that's not just an easy conversation unless we want to increase rates, which we all know I don't want to do. So, but I would say I am interested in what Mayor Pro Tem brought up as far as what the fee is with commercial, because we haven't really ever finished that conversation, and I think it's relevant. And I've heard a lot of folks who have a lot of opinions about that, as far as the businesses are generating the tax revenue, but at the end of the day, those businesses are generating more trips. Additionally, I can't imagine our road situation, if it continues to deteriorate, people are going to want to come here to shop. So it's kind of a two-edged sword. So, I think that we need to be realistic about that. I don't need an answer today about that. I just think that that's something that I hope that you do bring back some suggestions this year.
My neighbor had a wonderful traffic calming device, because we dead-ended Westminster Boulevard, and all the way down to Harlan is a thoroughfare in the neighborhood. So he just kept a 2x4 and threw it out in the street, and it only took once. Every single 16-year-old learning to drive. He didn't put nails in it or anything. He just threw out. He just had it right there, and I'd watch him throw it out, and I'd go, oh, no. Oh, but I wish you could do something about the speed racing. They think it's spring already, and 3 nights in a row, from 11 o'clock until 3 a.m., they are screaming. And the problem is, I don't know, I go on to streetracing.com, but I say it either is 112th, either Westminster Boulevard, 36, and 104th, because all of those I am within a quarter mile of. So I just never can tell exactly. But and I'm grateful to hear about fire hydrants, since I was told that's my job. I'm glad you're doing it. Thank you.
We do have time for that.
Maintain them, keep them operational.
Yep.
Partnership with fire.
Thank you very much. You guys do wonderful, and I heard you talked about permits in Google. How are we doing? Where are we at? When are we having ribbon cutting?
to give an update. So we meet bi-weekly with the Google Fiber team, and they are completely cleared, ready to go. There's nothing from the city side of things that's holding them up. The weather is probably the biggest production rate at this point in time. So I think once the weather starts to clear, then they'll be ready to go. And Mr. Garcia and myself have been corresponding, asking that exact question. When are we going to have a ribbon cutting in Westminster? Saying here it comes. So it's on his list of things.
My mayor friend in Wheat Ridge got to do it first, so.
Because I keep asking them when ours is when I see other people.
Yeah.
Please do. Keep asking. We ask the same question.
Yeah.
Mayor, may I ask one?
Sure.
Thank you so much. The last thing I want to do is draw this out, but hopefully, quick question. I heard PVC, which I understand is more durable. Is there a version of PVC that does not leach PFAS? And if that exists, do we use it?
So PFAS usually isn't in PVC.
No.
So no, that's forever chemicals like PVC is phenol chloride, and it's completely safe, potable water, and about 61 approved. So PFAS is actually found in, and most fast food places are getting them out, but Tara didn't present on this from the water quality lab, but the wastewater plant did a lot of sampling from residential and then the commercial customers, and found that primarily there is some slight PFAS, but it's from people with wearing Gore-Tex and even in makeup still, waterproof mascara. I mean, the thing is, we just got a regulatory, we got to take it out of the product, and hopefully there's more stricter legislation coming. But in terms of our pipeline, PVC material
Not there.
is completely safe.
That's really great to hear. Okay, that was a misunderstanding on my part that it might have that in it. And the internet's part, to be fair.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
Sure.
So how did anything?
No, it's fantastic information. Thank you so much.
And Julie, our street snow plowers, when I drive and have to go through several cities on any given snow day, I know when I leave Westminster. So thank them. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Andrea.
We need a
Thanks, John.
quick break before we go to exec.
Can we read exec into before we take the
I'm
break?
just asking first. I don't see any yeses, so.
Oh.
Yep.
Keep going.
Yep.
Okay. Then, Mayor, as council voted prior to convening the post-meeting discussions to enter into the exec session, the next item that we'll talk about once you've concluded the open portion of tonight's meeting will be the executive session to discuss city facility security measures. And for that, the clerk will need to end the live stream and start a separate recording for the exec session.